Hi, everybody. This is Language of Music Lesson 8, which means we've been at this for 8 weeks. I hope you had a good weekend. We had a very quiet one. That seems to be the pattern for the summer. Quiet. Everything's quiet. I could use with a bit more noise, like some singing would be great. In the meantime, I want to teach you about major key signatures. We've talked about scales, about creating scales and how that's done, and that because we have a certain pattern that we have to follow to make a major scale, there, with the exception of the key of C, we're going to need black notes. We're going to need accidentals, sharps or flats, to make the scale come out with the half step between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8, and all the other steps being whole. As long as you understand the pattern, you'll understand that you need to use sharps or flats in every key except C. And so a musician who's spending a lot of time learning this kind of thing memorizes key signatures. The key signature is the picture of the black notes that are needed to make the key correct. So if you are doing a key of G, and you start on a G and you end on a G and you follow the pattern, you will find that you have to have an F sharp to make the last step a half step between 7 and 8. In order for that to be a half step, the F in the scale has to be sharped. So F sharp is the one black note needed in the key of G to make the scale come out right. So when we write music in the key of G, we write a sharp on the F line at the beginning of the music. I have made for you this sheet, and I have emailed it to you. And it is all of the major key signatures. And since I just mentioned C, here's C, and I've written them in both G clef and bass clef. And C has no sharps or flats, and so it is blank. But over here, I've written G, also in both treble clef and bass clef. And you will see that there is a sharp. There's a sharp sitting on that top line, and there's a sharp sitting on that fourth line for the bass clef. One sharp, which is F sharp, and that is the key signature for the key of G. The key signature for the key of D is two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. F sharp and C sharp, always written in that order and on those particular lines and spaces. There are other choices, of course, that they could have used, but these are the ones they use. This is sort of standard notation. So the key of D has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. The key of A has three sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. The key of E has four sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. And I've written it in both clefs. And then the key of B has five sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. Please notice that each time we go to the next key in the series, we're adding one sharp. And the sharps that we had before for the earlier keys are still there. We're just adding one more. There is a pattern to this. It is a logical, mathematical, easily understood pattern. And this illustrates it. The key that has six sharps is F sharp. It has to be F sharp because we sharped F a long time ago, way back up there. So obviously it's F sharp, not F natural. And there are six sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp. And the key of C sharp is the last one of the sharp keys, and it has all 7 notes sharped. C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp. All of them are sharped, every single one. Not too much music is written in the key of C sharp. Having to remember that many sharps, it just seems ridiculous. Now, what about the flats? Well, the key of C has 0 flats. The key of F has 1 flat, which is B flat. The key of B flat has 2 flats, which are B flat and E flat. The key of E flat has 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. The key of A flat, is that where I am? Yeah, A flat has 4, B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat. The key of D flat has 5, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. The key of G flat has 6, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and C flat. And the key of C flat has all of them. C flat, D flat, E flat, F flat, G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat. I've written a couple of words that you need to understand, and one of them is enharmonic. If you look at a keyboard and you look at, let's say, middle C, and you look at the black note right above middle C, that's C sharp. The next white note after that is a D. Well, if I were to go down backwards and looked at D and went down to the black note below D, that's a D flat. Notice that a C sharp and a D flat are the same thing. They sound the same, that is. They're spelled differently, but they sound the same. So we call them enharmonic equivalents. A C sharp and a D flat are enharmonic equivalents. So the key of C sharp, I've written, is enharmonic equivalent to D flat. C sharp has 6 sharps in it. The key of C sharp has 6 sharps. The key of D flat has 5 flats. Composers are much more likely to write a piece in the key of D flat than in the key of C sharp. They will get exactly the same sound, but the players only have to remember 5 flats, or 5 flats instead of 6 sharps. This may not be true of all instruments. There are some instruments that just don't sound good in certain keys, or that are very difficult to play in certain keys. And so it may be that for some instruments, the key of C sharp is preferable to the key of D flat, but certainly on a piano, we usually use the key of D flat. And usually for singers, it's written in D flat and not in C sharp. Down here, I've written the key of C flat, and that is the enharmonic equivalent of B. B has 5 sharps, C flat has 7 flats. I have never in my life seen a piece of music written in C flat, or anybody ever refer to the note just below C as C flat. It technically, of course, it is, but it's never used that way. So I wrote theoretical key. It's a theoretical key, but it's virtually never used. So back in the time of Johann Sebastian Bach, and his dates I happen to know are 1685 to 1750, which we call the Baroque era, and he was the ultimate composer in that era. And he was well known among his colleagues. He wasn't world famous the way he is now, but he was well known and respected among other musicians. Anyway, somebody, and I don't know who, but somebody out there knows who this is. Somebody developed a new way of tuning a keyboard instrument, a new way. In the past, before this person, keyboards were tuned in such a way that you could only play them in a couple of keys and have it sound good. This person came up with a way to tune a keyboard such that every key was just slightly out of tune, and every key was sounded equally good on a keyboard. It was called, tuning was called tempering in those days. Even tempering meant that every key would sound equally good. To our modern ears, they all sound equally good on a keyboard. But if you were to take the mathematical readings of the number of beats per second of each note, you would find out that the half steps are just so slightly off that we can't tell. But Bach would have been able to tell. And the person who developed this new tempering system was able to tell. And he decided that retuning a keyboard instrument so that you could use it in any key that matched the instruments it was going to play with or the singer that it was going to accompany would be preferable, that you would be able to get more use out of the harpsichord or the clavichord, which is what they were using in those days. And he came to Mr. Bach, who was so well known, and he said, I have a new way of tuning the clavier. The clavier was sort of an overarching word that covered all keyboard instruments of the day. And he said, I'd like to demonstrate it to you. And he did. And Mr. Bach was impressed and said, that will make my work as a composer easier, because I won't have to be stuck with the same 3 or 4 keys. If a keyboard is involved in what I'm writing, I have to write in certain keys. But now that you've developed an even tempering system, I am going to be able to write music in all keys. and the keyboard will be able to participate in those ensembles, and everything will sound good. So he said, and I'm going to help you out by writing a prelude and fugue in every key for the keyboard to prove that they all sound good. And he did. And the book that he published of all of those preludes and fugues is called The Well-Tempered Clavier. You may have heard of that book. It's famous. All these preludes and fugues are used every time, but it's one of the few instances in which something was written in the key of C flat major. The C flat major is a useless key, but he demonstrated that you could play in the key of C flat major or B major or F sharp major, any of those keys, and your keyboard would sound good. Maybe not quite as good as he thought in terms of perfection, but for modern ears, they all sound in tune. So that's what the well-tempered clavier means. Well-tempered means well-tuned, better tuned. So I have given you this sheet of paper for you to study. And what I want you to do, because your minds need a little bit of exercise, don't you think, is to notice some of the patterns. The patterns are sort of cool. And they all have to do with the interval of a fifth. The distance between C and G on a keyboard going up is a fifth. The distance between G and D going up is a fifth. D to A is a fifth. A to E is a fifth. If you go up by fifths, you'll be into the pattern that I'm talking about. Now, the key of C has 0 sharps. The key of G has 1 sharp. The distance between C and G, the key of C and the key of G, is a fifth. The key of D has 2 sharps. The distance between G and D is a fifth. The 1 sharp is F. The 2 sharps are F and C, and the distance between F and C is a fifth. Remember, I'm always going up. I'm always going from left to right on the keyboard, higher. The key of A has 3 sharps, F, C, and G. The new sharp that I added, we already had F and C, I'm adding one more, is G, is a fifth higher than the C that preceded it. And A is a fifth higher than D. The key of E, which is a fifth higher than A, has 4 sharps, and the 4th sharp is D sharp, and that is a fifth higher than the G sharp that preceded it. The last sharp, the new sharp that gets added to the key signature, is always a fifth higher than the sharp that precedes it. And the key itself is always a fifth higher than the key that preceded it. In this pattern, we're following this pattern of fifths. And that continues with 5 sharps. The key of B is a fifth higher than E, and the 5th sharp is, what is it, A sharp, which is a fifth higher than, what is that? I'm losing my memory. This was B sharp, so A sharp is the last one. The key of F sharp has 6 sharps. F sharp is a fifth higher than B, and its last sharp is E sharp, which is a fifth higher than B. Everything is going up by fifths. And so you say, well, what about the flats? Well, what about the flats? Key of C has 0 flats. The key of F has 1 flat, which is B flat. In terms of learning this pattern, those are 2 facts you need to memorize. That the key of C has 0 flats, and the key of F has 1, which is B flat. If you can memorize those 2 things, the rest of the system doesn't have to be memorized. The next key in the system is B flat. Now, B flat is a fifth lower than F. When we're talking about flats, we're talking about going down, lower on the keyboard to the left. From F to B flat, going down is a fifth. B flat has 2 flats, which are B flat and E flat, and yes, E flat is a fifth lower than B flat. The key of E flat has 3, B flat, E flat, A flat. The key of E flat is a fifth lower than the key of B flat. The last flat is A flat, which is a fifth lower than E flat, and so forth, going right down. It's a pattern. It's called a circle of fifths. Another week I will give you the picture of the circle of fifths. It's really beautiful because it has no exceptions, and it totally works, and it is sort of thrilling to understand if you like that kind of pattern stuff. All of these key signatures, therefore, are not arbitrary. They have logic to them based on the science of acoustics and what pitches sound good and how fifths are organized in our ears and in the world of acoustics. It's all science. It's not theory. It's quite beautiful. So when you look at a flat key signature, you look at you look at the second to last flat, and that names the key. The key of B flat, the second to last flat is B flat. Key of A flat, second to last flat is A flat. When you look at sharp key signatures and you want to figure out what key you're in, you look at the last sharp and you go up a half step. So F sharp to G, C sharp to D, G sharp to A, and so forth. The last sharp, the furthest one to the right, go up a half step and that names the key. That's how you read a key signature. So I know this has been thrilling information for you, and it's just incredibly vitalized your day, and that knowing how to read key signatures is exactly what you wanted for this week's work. But honestly, it will make you a better musician, and we will be able to talk to each other in the language of music. So please print this out and study it, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Have a good time today.